the ship that brought Dracula from Transylvania all the way to Whitby, England, was based on a Russian schooner which actually wrecked under very real, very strange circumstances. So while the captain's log depicting the voyage of the Demeter is but one single chapter, it is arguably the most pivotal chapter in the entire novel. It captures Dracula's transition from his Transylvanian castle to the expansion of his blood-soaked reign in England, thanks to his manipulative role of local gypsies and his unsuspecting solicitors, Jonathan Harker and Renfield among them. Now, this transitional chapter would also set the tone for the remainder of the book, which comprised of Dracula's psychological hold over the victims he stalked and the resistance he fought against by those who would dare get in his way. Like every page which preceded, Bram had to nail this section just right to make us believe what we were reading wasn't mere fancy, but an accounting of factual record. It was vitally important to the novel, and certainly the reason it endures today, that we fear the telling of events as though our own lives and those we cherish were in as much perilous danger as any depicted in the story. After all, if Dracula could penetrate the center of the civilized world with his insidious evil, what chance did any of us have? And in order to keep in tune with the authenticity that Bram set out for us from page 1, he needed to put Dracula on a real ship. He would find that ship in the form of the Russian schooner, the Demeter, which succumbed to its demise in 1885. Thanks to a Coast Guard named Devin Petherick, who practically gave Bram his ship on a silver platter as the two men chatted about the various shipwrecks of the region. Hearing about the strange occurrence of the Demeter wreck, Bram altered the course of his ship from Styria to Dover, as originally penned, to what we now know as its travels from Transylvania to Whitby. Now, caught up in a terrible, albeit completely natural storm, the 120-ton schooner with its cargo of silver sand sought safe harbor at Collier's Point in Whitby, England. And as terrified of the fearsome storm as they were, the crew took to consuming whatever alcohol was on board in the hopes of some liquid respite or courage, and came into the harbor under full sail. The Demeter anchored herself in the harbor, only to be slewed about until she broke free of her anchors and was sent crashing onto the shore of Tate Hill Sands, her journey forever complete. That is, of course, until Bram Stoker gave her a new lease on life as the Demeter. From Bram Stoker's personal notes, currently preserved in the Rosenbach Museum in central Pennsylvania, we can see how meticulously the author conveyed as much truth as possible until the lines between the supernatural and reality were effectively blurred, right down to the exact weather patterns. Stoker's handwritten notes confirm this, and the wind conditions which determine the makeup of storms on the Black Sea. The author ensured that every description and occurrence was as accurate as possible to give us a perfectly reasonable supernatural storm. Now, every word served an intentional purpose. Every scene was historically sound and researched right down to the finest detail. Another great example of this is when Bram's Demeter breached the beach with only its dead captain and a large black dog, we'll get to that later, were found aboard. As the Coast Guards were scrambling to figure out what to do, a student lawyer ran up on them and informed them that since the dead captain's hands were actually tied to the wheel, the cargo is not derelict and therefore it can't be claimed by them. Bram, and by extension of his undead creation, had truly thought of everything. Even the thick fog which shrouded Dracula's passage was so much more than the mere whim of fantastic imagination. On top of the East Coast cliff, St. Mary's Church overlooks a small cemetery housing several empty graves along with those with full occupancy. Bram would actually use 8 or 9 of those names off of the headstones in his novel. There's some Easter eggs to look out for. Local historians have it that the empty graves were marked to act as beacons for the dead, and that when the weather is just right and the dense fog rolling in is made up of souls who'd be lost at sea and are finally coming home to rest. How fitting is it that Bram should utilize a veil of dead souls to help conceal the passage of the most famous dead soul in history? To further localize his tale, Bram used his passion to the theater and keen ear for getting the language just right by recording research notes on Yorkshire slang heard at the time. And you can hear this during the multiple conversations the Captain Swales has with Mina Murray as they look out at the approaching storm, discussing stories of the sea and the dead. Now, remember that black dog that leaped from the ship when it crashed ashore? Considering Dracula did everything he could to avoid detection, one might fairly question why the cunning count would reveal himself to so many witnesses, even in the form of another animal. Perhaps Bram and Dracula knew about the legend of the Burghost, a mythical black dog with savage teeth and claws which appeared only at night to stalk and rip apart its prey. Best to give locals an omen of death they're familiar with than a new danger they might try to defend against, right? Such is the convincing manner in which Bram approached and by extension delivered his magnificent story that after 126 years since the novel was first published, we're still left to wonder exactly what happened on the ship Demeter as each of its crew was eliminated. Thanks to Universal Films, we did in fact earlier this year get the film Last Voyage of the Demeter, which does a pretty damn good job of answering that question for us. However, was it always the intention to leave it up to us readers to decide the details for ourselves? Was it because Bram was forced by the publisher to cut by hand 30,000 words from the original manuscript? We may never know exactly how the terrible events played out as the dutiful captain tried desperately to make sense of what was happening around him. However, as the years roll by, like mist in the night which surrounds the Demeter, we're certain to uncover many more truths waiting to be discovered, analyzed, and stitched together like so many puzzle pieces. And to that end I say, long may this fascinating creature of the night haunt the dreams for those who sleep unwisely, and for those who dare sail over troubled waters aboard the cursed ship Demeter.